This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Dubois. I'm the commissioner of the KIJHL. We're here for our second online webinar with Tom McEvay, and the topic today is college hockey. The original webinar was actually back on November 15th. We had a recording issue, so Tom's been kind enough to re-record for us. This presentation will be linked on YouTube, and we do have our third seminar on the topic of self-marketing coming up on Monday, December 6th. So with that, I'll pass it over to Tom.
Thanks, Jeff. As I said last week when we recorded this the first time, this is a carryover from the first seminar. Some of the earlier parts I will review because I'm not sure if everybody has seen the first seminar. Essentially, I'll review this most important parts of that, I think, and then we'll get into this one. And again, there's my contact information. The one thing that has changed, Jeff has now created a education at the KIJHL for me. So I have the two ways you can get a hold of me. Somebody last week commented that they weren't getting through on the KI one, but I think Jeff has now corrected that problem. So today I'm going to review the first seminar, look at options and opportunities that you have in front of you in hockey and in education. What are the variety of pathways that student athletes could get there? And then we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty of what today's presentation is all on entrance requirements and the various factors that you must consider when contemplating going on to college hockey. And we'll look at some of the factors that are most important, including cost and selecting the school that is realistic for you. And we'll look at all the factors that you need to consider. And then we'll look into questions, etc., that we need to further explore and prepare for the final of these three seminars, which Jeff has mentioned is going to be on self-marketing on December 6th. These are a few pictures taken from the various leagues, including the BC League, the CIS or U Sport, NCAA Division 1 and 3, and also the ACAC, which I have talked about and I'll talk about more today. But obviously there are a lot of options for players, and while everybody may have an interest or it intrigues them to play NCAA Division 1 at Harvard or North Dakota, maybe some of those options are not realistic, and not realistic sometimes, because you're not good enough or that isn't where your talent lays, but possibly it's a matter of what programs they have educationally and career-wise at their schools. It could be a factor in the costs and what you are going to receive and could get from them to help you with those costs. And if that is not very significant, it could lead you with some interesting cost comparisons that I really impress upon parents and players they should look at. So again, there are options and each ones have various variables that you have to consider. And the last time I showed this slide and with the purpose of emphasizing that everybody has a different pathway, and this was a reunion of some Bulldog players a number of years ago, and each one of them has taken a different path in life and in hockey, and not that their pathway is the one that is the perfect one that everybody should explore, but it is the one that they wanted to explore, and they took that pathway. So again, it isn't a matter of saying there's a template This is the pathway you should be focusing on. You should educate yourself, which is what the KI here has asked me to assist them with in my position as the education director, is getting you the right information so that you can make informed decisions as you go along. And again, each one of these fellows have made informed decisions, perhaps maybe some more than others, and some have made some mistakes. I can notice one player in there, and I won't mention a name, but who I know made a decision, maybe not on all the factors I was encouraging to, and he ended up in a situation at a school. It was a good school, great hockey, etc. However, the coaching situation at that school was not one that aligned with who he was as an individual, and it created some real challenges for him over the 4 years that he was there. So again, many decisions that we have to make. This young man, again, introduced you to in the first seminar, is Travis Cross, who is an Olympic wrestler from Port Alberni. And, you know, often when I'm doing seminars and talking about, you know, making these decisions, etc., I can, you know, sound very clinical. I'm not meaning that that should steer you away from having dreams. Absolutely. The dream, you know, it could come first, you know, the things that you're thinking about, the things you want to pursue, etc. Those dreams. Absolutely, people have to have dreams, and I encourage that. And Travis had a dream to, at a very young age, to go to the Olympic Games. But that dream now does not become a reality unless things are put into goals, and those goals are put into plans, and then those plans are put into action, and you go out and you do it, and you work hard, and you don't get discouraged, etc., etc. And that's exactly what Travis did. And that's what I tried to do when all throughout my entire life, but certainly when I retired, I had a dream, not necessarily at that time to trek to Everest, but to explore the world, to see some things I've always wanted to see, but never had the time to take them in, to return to my interests in the outdoors, in hiking, etc. And in 2012, my son and I trekked to Mount Everest. But again, that was a dream. Started with a dream, but the dream must become a plan, and a plan must become action if you want those dreams to become reality. I indicated last time that I've broken it down, and these are very broad areas, but 3 areas that you have to consider when you're a hockey player and looking at possibly moving on and possibly getting to college hockey, etc., etc. Obviously, you need to be able to play at that next level. So you do all the things that you want to do in terms of hockey that you have to do. You have to be the best you can be. You have to become coachable. You follow the proper nutrition and get lots of sleep and become fit and work on your weaknesses, etc., etc. But remember, if you want to go to college hockey, if they can't get you in because your marks or you don't meet certain requirements are not there, they can't manufacture those. Those are very real, and some of them are very cut and dry, as much as the coaches sometimes would dearly like to make shortcuts. Again, admissions to colleges, it doesn't happen that way. So make sure that you are educated, as we're trying to do here, about what are the requirements, and that you look at the whole picture. Education is not just in classrooms, but at schools, where that is a place where you can learn. That is a place that would fit who you are. Get good information. Always go the extra mile. Not necessarily be somebody who's always as I call it sometimes, a mark hound. I mean, but you have to be very conscious of marks are very important. And I think I really made the point last time that when you get to junior hockey and college hockey, etc., there are thousands of good hockey players out there. There are thousands of people who can meet the requirements, etc. Often, some of the very, very important decisions that coaches make are made based on who the person is, their character. So again, paying attention to how you conduct your life, how you treat other people, what the decisions are that you make in your life. Make sure that you have the intangibles that coaches are looking for. So, again, how is character exhibited? And I think I've gone through those. But I want to really emphasize how important character is not something that you take some time off from. It's 24/7. And how these various character traits are so critical. What are you looking for when you look at teammates? And then what do you think a coach would want? Don't try and become something that you're not, but really try and discover who you really are. So as we get into the opportunities, I think I've gone through the major college programs that are available in Canada, the U Sport, or used to be CIS programs at the Canadian universities, NCAA Division I, NCAA Division III, the Alberta Colleges League, which has some very good options, what's happening in the BC Intercollegiate League, and then a wide variety of programs, club or non-varsity programs that are in the States. Again, transcripts do become a huge factor at this point. What are the coaches, what are the schools looking at? First off, I emphasize, don't be fooled by minimums. Don't be fooled by, wow, it's a minimum mark you have and you think that is some benchmark that can focus you into all sorts of opportunities. No, it just means that's a line that below they're not going to look at you. Above, again, however higher above or however much your marks are higher than what is the minimum, is going to open up more opportunities. So, if you can achieve a 70% with your eyes closed, but really you're more of an 80% person capable of, give your head a shake. That's what you should be shooting for. Now, Canadian schools look at grades 11 and 12. American schools, the NCAA, look at grades 9 to 12. Canadian programs, there is no middleman, so to speak, no entrance way that's outside of the school. You apply. If a coach from a Canadian program is interested in you, he will have you apply directly to the school to see if you can get through their admissions. However, in the NCAA, they have a thing called the NCAA Eligibility Center, and that is a gatekeeper for all athletics. So you have to go through that and then apply directly to the school. Nice difference here. There's no limit to upgrading for Canadian schools. So, possibly when you're 18 or 19 out of high school playing junior hockey, there's an opportunity there to pick up some courses or upgrade courses that you will have to have for admissions. However, the NCAA will only accept one upgraded course and only in the year immediately after graduation. A couple of schools in the Canadian university programs and U Sports. Calgary and Mount Royal. But there are 35 university programs in men's hockey across the country. And there you can see who they are. Basically, right from UBC in British Columbia through the Alberta schools, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, a lot in Ontario, and quite a few in Quebec and in the Maritimes. So how are you going to get into those schools academically? As I've said, Canadian schools are going to look at grades 11 and 12. Not that the previous grades are not important, but for admissions purposes, they are going to focus on the senior grades in grade 11 and 12. So they're going to look at English 11, they're going to look at your English 12. Actually, in some of the smaller colleges, that is the critical link. You know, you have to have English 12 and be able to function at a very good level in communication and in written language, etc., or you're not going to be able to survive at the academic rigors of any school. They look at your academic math 11 or 12, or both. A minimum, excuse me, I want to get back to that math. I'm not saying you have to have a math 12 in most for admissions. However, they will look at either math 11 or 12, and having sometimes that extra course is valuable. A minimum of one science 11 or 12. Obviously, if you're going to go into a science program or applying for a Bachelor of Science, they would require more. For minimum expectations, at least one science. Some Canadian schools still have a second language requirement. UBC is one of those, but not all. 3 to 5 additional grade 12 academic courses. Having done this now for many years, both first off as a counselor and administrator, and now working with athletes, I have seen over the years this area increase. It used to be, pretty standard that 3 academic 12s, English 12 plus 3 academic 12s was about usually the minimum standard. However, there are many schools now that require 4 additional grade 12s, and I know as example, UBC requires 5 additional grade 12 academic subjects. Now, important academic subjects, P12, excellent course. I've taught that course. However, P12 is not an academic course, so that's not going to help with your admissions. The program or the university you're applying to specifically, obviously, there could be some slight differences, and they may have some additional requirements. And all the above at a minimum, again, I can't tell you 100%, it should be 75 or 85, but that is the range that I would see for first year admissions. And I think that the closer you are to the 85, the better, because often 75 in a given year, they're looking at all the first year people who are applying, and if the spaces all get filled long before they ever hit 75, that's going to be the minimum for that year. So 75 to 80% to get into a Canadian university. The Alberta colleges is a unique opportunity that we have available to us. There are 7 men's programs in the Alberta colleges, and the unique thing about this league is that the schools are not necessarily focused all on just the academic programs. There are many technical programs and trades programs at these schools that gives players, young men, the opportunities that are more suitable for them if they're not leaning towards a very strict academic education. And many are not. Particularly, like I've said in the last seminar, many hockey players, many athletes are what we call kinesthetic learners. You learn by doing, you learn by manipulating with your hands, etc. And you learn by seeing it happening. All these ways of learning, I think, are really often leaning very much towards the athlete. Yes, athletes sometimes learn in multiple ways, and they can learn as an auditory learner or a visual, etc. But again, these programs offer a wider variety than what particularly a university may offer. And here's just a sample list of some of the programs that you could find in one of these colleges and still pursue very high level hockey as an option. So, again, programs in environmental sciences, fire and emergency services. A lot of people talk about being a fireman or policeman, and again, getting a regular basic degree, yeah, it could help you, but if you have some training specific in some areas such as program on fire and emergency services, that it can be a real advantage to you. So, and all the way through and into the trade programs in electrician, carpenters, and cooks, and all the various plumbers, etc., all the various trades, and very much into the technical program, engineering and technology. I think I'd mentioned to you one of the people in that picture I showed you earlier of the reunion of the Bulldog players, Warren Muir, went into a respiratory technologist program and now works in Alberta and has a very successful career and had a very successful college career. So again, there are things you have to open your eyes sometimes, because you have to dig, do your research, find out what a school has available, find out what the entrance requirements. Again, these programs have different entrance requirements than what the CIS may have, but each one of them may have some things that are specific. Very important that right now, either while you're still in high school or you're out playing junior hockey, etc., use your time. You have time. Do the research, and doing the research is so much easier now with the internet. You can follow along and get the information you need so that when decisions start coming up, you have a very good idea what's realistic for you. Pictures there of a couple of campuses. These schools have very good programs, very good facilities. Red Deer College there, an aerial photograph, and SAIT, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. As I say, each school will have maybe slightly different requirements. Again, more academic programs are going to require higher levels of academic results. They're going to look at those English and those math, etc. Four-year or degree or four-year programs are equivalent to universities, etc. And they're going to have higher requirements academically. Technical programs may require a lot more the math and science proficiency. Trades programs may require some hands-on experience and opportunities that are going to be there. You're going to have those type of things you're going to have to show to you admissions. Basic English and math skills are very common requirements. And schedules, sometimes I like to point out that, there may be a program you're very interested in. However, find out how it matches if you want to continue playing hockey, because I have found over the years that, again, to play hockey at a certain school wouldn't be a good combination with a program that maybe their schedules, etc., would not allow for that. So find out, what programs are available, what you're looking for, but also if you're looking to continue as a college hockey player, find out also how the two things interface. In British Columbia, we have 4 schools this year. It's been as many as 7 over the years, but we have 4 schools that do not offer necessarily high-level varsity programs, but do have club or non-varsity hockey. Now, Simon Fraser University is now in the NCAA. It's the only Canadian school ever to be added to the NCAA, and they're a very high-level Canadian and North American university. They have many sports at the varsity level. Hockey is not necessarily at the varsity level, but again, many of the players who make the choice to go to Simon Fraser make it because the program Simon Fraser has in a wide variety of areas, and they can still follow their hockey passions and play a good level. There's many players who formerly played junior. Many players who transferred from the NCAA have found that, yes, but the school I'm at, the NCAA, I don't really have the type of programs that I'm interested in, and they like to transfer back to Simon Fraser or UVic. It's another excellent program, one of the top universities in Canada and North America. And again, you can still play hockey at a very, very good level. The Okanagan also has a program, and Vancouver Island University out of Nanaimo. So there is programs right here in British Columbia that you can explore. And again, just remember some of the basic Canadian university admission requirements, because UVic and Simon Fraser would require many of the same things that, because they have varsity sports in youth sport as well. So many of these requirements are also appropriate for them. I will point out, again, being the NCAA Simon Fraser, if you're applying to Simon Fraser and you're going to play a varsity sport, it would be the NCAA requirements. It gets a little fuzzy with regards to some of their club programs, and that's worth exploring, or even ask somebody like myself or your school, your team educational advisor, and they can do some research and help you. So the NCAA, the organization that oversees all athletics in the NCAA in the United States, some 13 to 1,500 schools. And again, as I've said before, they have the NCAA Eligibility Center, which is, again, I like to refer to it as the gatekeeper. It's a organization that you would send your information about you as a academic student, as well as your information on your amateur status, and they will determine your eligibility based upon those criteria. That is the kind of the first step to getting into a school that you want to pursue your hockey at. So what are the NCAA Eligibility Center's basic requirements? Before I look into that, just again, some of the schools that have hockey, some 60 plus programs in the men's, and a number in the women's programs as well. So if you want to apply to an NCAA school, you want to play athletics, get through the NCAA Eligibility Center, And what are their minimum requirements? Well, they look at grades 9 to 12, as I've said before, and they are going to focus on 16 courses that are approved courses for your jurisdiction. In other words, if you're a British Columbia student, they look at 16 courses that the NCAA Eligibility Center has approved and vetted for BC. There is another set of courses that they have approved for Alberta, another set for Saskatchewan, and one for each of the 10 provinces and the territories that are in make up Canada. In the United States, they look at each high school courses. Okay, I'll focus on the general requirements. They are looking at 4 English requirements. So standard English 9, 10, 11, and 12. Those would be the typical ones that a student from British Columbia were required to have. But again, it could be an additional English, could be English literature or English writing, something that's different than just basic English 10 or 11, but minimum of 4. A minimum of 3 math, which must be at the algebra or higher level. So again, there are certain math courses which are excellent math courses. However, they have not been vetted. So when you start looking, or you're looking at sending your transcripts there, or better still, if you're in high school and you're having to make decisions about what math stream or path you are going to go on to, my suggestion is check with your educational advisor, check with somebody in the know, somebody who's knowledgeable about, yes, what courses, what math courses are acceptable by the NCAA. Minimum of 2 natural science or physical science courses, one of them which has been a lab. Minimum of 2 years of social science courses, that's social studies. An extra year of either English, math, or science, and then 4 additional courses from their approved courses. That would make up the 16. You have to have a minimum GPA, which is a grade point average, of 2.3, and this is where I really stress that don't shoot for the minimums. 2.3 is in the neighborhood of approximately a C+, less than a C+, and I can tell you right now that most universities in the NCAA, you would never get in with that level of minimum GPA. It will get you to the eligibility center, but again, always strive for what you are capable of. You still have on the NCAA policy books that a student has to have written the SAT or the ACT, which are some college entrance exams in the United States, and that score has to have matched a minimum score as compared to your GPA, okay? However, right now, the SAT and the ACT have been deferred because of COVID until the 22-23 season. Now, we'll also say you will hear lots of information and talk about, well, maybe they're going to cancel, etc. At this point, there is nothing definitive that the NCAA will move beyond this year about deferring or canceling the SAT or ACT. So my suggestion is that people should still be prepared and look, luckily, because most players are in hockey are going on after 19, 20 years old onto the NCAA. That buys a little bit of extra time, so you don't have to make a decision when you're still in high school. However, something to consider. And there are some rules regarding the number of courses you finish before grade 12 and in the various areas. Again, I like to repeat myself here that they must have been courses that have been approved. Any course that is going to go on the NCAA that they require from British Columbia or Alberta have to have one they vetted. And sometimes a province will implement some new courses, and it may take a year or two before they get approved by the NCAA. So again, in British Columbia right now, example that they do have some courses that have been recently added in the English area, and by and large, all of them have been vetted and have been approved. However, there are a few that have yet to be formally, officially, in their totality approved. The New Media 11 and 10 are two such courses. They haven't been denied. However, they've been designated as pending individual review. So if you have them on your transcripts, they may require that you go through the list of expectations that I've put at the bottom. May not, particularly if you've been a very good student and you have strong academic marks in those other academic courses, then it may not be required. However, if you were a weaker student and borderline and you had just very low marks in some other courses, they may look at that new media 10 or 11 and say, well, we want to really have the student show us what their competency was in those courses. So if it can be avoided, I would suggest avoid it. If it can't, those are the factors they would consider. And as I've talked about with the SAT and the ACT, these are some of the really important things that we need to remember. That it is in advance till 2022 and being discussed. It's available in most places in Canada. SAT, it's in more places in Canada, than what I find the ACT. Both are accepted. However, you will find it in Canada. It's the SAT that more often we tend to fall back on just because it is offered in more locations. You register at least 1 month in advance, and that's very important because there are no wait lists and no walk-ons. So the exam is on December 7th, and you wait until November 15th. You're not getting in because that is already, well past the initial registration date, and often they fill very quickly. The SAT is an exam. It's written on the same Saturdays worldwide, 5 times a year, not 6 times a year, as I've stated here. You can get some resources at collegeboard.com, or you can pick up a book at Chapters. And if your team or your junior team possibly will have some SAT prep. So lots of opportunities to do well on those exams, and it's nice that you can remember that you can write multiple times. They take the best score. I've had many athletes who've written as many as 5 times. Very common that a student athlete might write once or twice, even 3 times. I'd like to acknowledge this slide. This is when University of Massachusetts Amherst won the NCAA Frozen Four last year, and number 25, Bollinger, jumping on his teammates in celebration after their win, was an ex-player that I had worked with. Spent a year here in Port Alberni, and really nice to see those type of opportunities and alumni doing well. Certain things that I think maybe are some policies that the NCAA has that I would like to make you aware of at this point. Not that you probably won't remember each one of them, but just remember that there are some things you have to consider. The NCAA, you have 4 years of athletic eligibility, 4 years that you can actually play. You do have 5 years within which to do those 4 years. So the moment that your NCAA clock is start ticking, you have 5 years from that time to do 4 years of playing eligibility. Now, very important point, if you are still playing junior when you turn 21, you're playing your 20-year-old year of junior, January comes, that's the year now that you'll turn 21. If you turn 21 within the first few months of that year, obviously you're still going to be playing hockey. If you're still playing at the time you turn 21, there is a policy called the NCAA's 21-year-old rule, and there are some things you have to consider. So again, if you're one of those players who happens to be born in January, February, March, or April, and you are going to be turning 21, that's a policy that you'll have to take a look at. So again, rather than get into it in a lot of detail here, that is just something important that I would leave you with at this time. There are some policies regarding amateur status and having played junior, major junior. If you play major junior, it's seen as professional. So if you've signed with a major junior or you have played some games with me in major junior, it makes you ineligible for the NCAA Division I. You can go to a major junior camp. You can go, if you're footing the bill, for the full length of the camp. However, if the major junior team is paying for your accommodation, meals, expenses, etc., that can only happen for 48 hours, after which either you must start paying the bills or you would have to leave that camp. If you don't, again, there's NCAA policy and you would find you're ineligible. It could get very messy. I think the final thing that I want to point out is that taking college courses while playing junior is a very good idea, and I know that many coaches actually look for that. They look to see, has the person kept up? Have they trained their mind at the same time they've been training their bodies? So again, if you play junior for 1, 2, or 3 years, an NCAA or any college program is going to be very wary if you've been doing only hockey for that length of time, because you have not exhibited at that point that you'd be very successful when you step into a college and be a full-time college hockey player. So, but make sure that if you play or take college courses while you're playing junior hockey, you must never accumulate 8 or more credits. The NCAA sees 8 courses or 24 credits as being 1 year of college. And now you have just used up one of your years of eligibility. So again, some things that I think very specific, not that you have to remember the specifics of each one, but just remember generally, oh, that could be something that I have to take into consideration. I need to research further. Some of the programs in the NCAA Division III, over 80 men's programs in Division III in hockey. St. John's University is one of those. St. John's Johnnies. So what are the academic requirements for Division III? Well, Division III is not certified by the NCAA Eligibility Center, which means strictly you don't have to go through the Eligibility Center, because those colleges and universities each set their own admission standards. The colleges and universities of Division I also set their own admission standards, but there is on top of that, there is the NCAA eligibility center admission standards. But in Division III, you don't have that extra layer of requirements. Division III schools are not allowed to offer any athletic scholarships. Very important. You understand that. Some of them could be schools that are as expensive as, as Harvard, etc. There's no athletic scholarships. However, there are academic scholarships. There is financial aid and a variety of other character referenced scholarships available. So do your research and do the research on the different admission requirements for each school. Could be one school out there that's just perfect for you. Now, you hear a lot about the club programs or non-varsity programs, but probably most people do not know there are 450 of these programs at colleges and universities in the States. They compete against each other. They sometimes compete against Division III schools. There's no national championship at that level, but they do offer some scholarships. They tend to be smaller private universities, many smaller public universities. The scholarships that they are offered at are more stringent, with often some of their numbers not as high as at Division I. You don't have to go through the eligibility center. You can go directly through admissions. Again, just as I'm saying regarding the BC Intercollegiate League, which those schools are not varsity sports, do not have hockey as a varsity sport. These are the same for the NCAA. Schools do not have hockey as their varsity sport. However, there are a lot of opportunities for athletes to continue their careers. I think this slide is one I had on during the first seminar, worthy of repeating here again. There are many misconceptions and pitfalls, and I think just being a critical thinker, being realistic, getting the right information, again, do your research. These are all things that are important. A lot of people think that, well, somebody will just find me, and I'm of the opinion that I don't leave things to chance. I want it to be choices that I make. And again, that's something I'd emphasized before. Don't be a disabled junior hockey player. What I mean by that is the years that you played junior hockey after you graduated from high school, etc., make them valuable, make them full, make them experiential. Experience as much as you can. Don't just become a hockey player who's really good at card playing and gaming, etc., because those are not very positive things on a resume. Take courses, do some research, volunteer, do things that are going to help you as a human being and develop your character. And know full well that there's some big differences between schools. Now, the differences don't mean that one is good and one is bad, but differences in that some would be very inappropriate, very unrealistic for a certain individual to go to, but for another person, that is ideal. So, and understand the financial realities. And I think, as we draw to a close here, understand that there are differences that mount up to tens of thousands of dollars. So sometimes in comparing schools, financial factors must be researched very well. Now, the Ivy League schools like Harvard and Princeton, Yale, etc., are very good schools and excellent opportunities, and they have those schools also have hockey programs. But like Division III, those are Division I schools that do not offer athletic scholarships, so they only offer financial aid. And I've used the example here that you or your parents have saved equivalent of about $10,000 that could be contributed towards your education each year. So you have $10,000. Remember, we're in Canada, so we'll talk Canadian dollars. However, Harvard's admission is going to be in US dollars, so 65,000 US, which is equivalent of about $80,000 or $90,000 Canadian, and you have $10,000 Canadian. Perhaps they review all of your financial variables, and they estimate that they'll give you $20,000 in financial aid. That still leaves you with a fairly good price tag that your family has to be able to afford. And sometimes maybe that's realistic, but many times that's not realistic. And even when it is realistic, that's not a really smart decision for you as an individual. So consider it. And you can see all the ones I've outlined. You know, you could go to a Division I school that has offers athletic scholarship, but remember, they only have the equivalent of 15 to 18 full-time scholarships, and most schools are carrying up to 30 players. So if you have 30 players, how is that money being divided up? And essentially what you're looking at is some of the very top recruits to a university. Yes, they're going to be offered potentially close to, if not a full ride, but not everybody is. Perhaps the next level of recruit, it's an 80%, the next level of recruit's a 60%, 50%, 30%, 25%. Sometimes an athlete is offered an opportunity to come and has been recruited by that school, but there is no money available in the first year. So, again, you hear of all these players going on to schools, etc. You hear the term scholarships, and you automatically think, oh, great, I'm going to go and have everything paid for me. It doesn't work that way, and you must know at where you are going to possibly fall, or be prepared that you possibly are not going to fall into the full ride situation. Yours could be different. In this case here, a young man gets $15,000 athletic scholarship. You have the $10,000 that you had already saved, but there's another $20,000 or more US that you still would be paying. So a lot of money. Sometimes in Division III, the costs are a little bit lower, but not all Division III schools. And you can see, though, sometimes at the end of the day, if you get a good financial aid package, you may end up with a lighter load that you have to pay. However, it could work out more. So again, you have to do your research. Often, a lot of Division III schools, even the Ivy League schools, would suggest that you go through a initial financial aid review to find out what you possibly could get from that school. Now, you compare that to schools in the CIS or in U Sport in Canada, where it might cost $20,000 to $25,000 a year all in for you, for any athlete, any student in first year. You may have, you do have scholarships available to you. They may not be as large. However, they are not required to be as large. You may get $5,000 to $7,000 in an athletic scholarship to play hockey on a CIS or U Sport team. You have $10,000 saved up for your family, so it leaves you with a very, realistic number that you still have to afford. Looking at the ACAC, where costs are a little bit lower, tuition is a little bit lower, and they have scholarship, athletic scholarships. So you can see that, that situation, it could be very, very realistic for somebody, whereas some of the others would not. So again, all depends on, your situation, depends on where you sit in the pecking order in terms of, what levels of scholarships you could expect. So looking forward, we talked about specific admission requirements. Maybe there's certain questions you should ask. What are the financial realities? What are the differences in the various pathways? Should I self-market? What's involved in marketing yourself to schools? Well, these are things that I'm going to cover in the final seminar on self-marketing, etc. So please know that we still have some more to work on. Obviously, I always recommend that players are exploring and researching to get as much information so that when you make decisions, you can make informed decisions that are best for you. And what are you going to consider? Your interests, your preferences, your suitability, what academic programs are offered, what programs fit with who you are as a human being, what is your learning style, which I'd mentioned, what are your career and your athletic goals. Sometimes they are totally aligned at a certain university, and other times, yeah, they might be a very good university to go to for your athletic goals, but they don't even offer a program that you would be interested in academically to carry on towards a career. Your lifestyle preferences, where do you want to live? In what type of situation do you want to have? Obviously, I've mentioned your financial realities. What is the best fit for you? So I think that at that, I'll end it here and strongly suggest and encourage you to take part in our final seminar on self-marketing on December 6th. And if you have any questions, again, I'm totally available to organizations and to KIJHL. If you have any questions, what we're trying to do is have the academic or the education advisors on each team be the front line for you, since I'm not going to be able to be everywhere. But however, we know that possibly they're going to have various differences. Somebody who's just starting out and wants to help some the players, all the way to somebody who's very well informed. So again, feel free to send me an email, ask some questions. Thank you for being a part of today, and I look forward to working with the teams and players in the KI. Bye-bye.